Hello YouTube, Matt here from the Forensic Operator Lab, and it's safe to say that you've caught me looking at some data again from a forensic pool. And in today's video, I'm going to be rehashing my SQLite forensics video and looking at a couple of forensic suites of SQLite databases and using these database viewers and comparing them. And the two viewers that I'm going to be looking at are this, which I'm on right here, which is DBBrowser for SQLite, and fqlite, which is the forensic SQLite viewer. And we're going to be going over some strengths and weaknesses of both, and also we're going to be taking a look at some SQL queries that I've prepared to show how each does the data. So without further ado, let's get into this. Hey guys, Matt here, back again with the ad for my Substack page. So on my Substack page called the Forensic Operator Lab, I write about all the things that I speak about on this YouTube channel. So as of creating this video, the latest thing that I have on here is my article about how to create and mount images for forensic images on Linux. And I also have things about other Linux things, as well as forensics things and cloud-related things too. So you can see as I just scroll down these pages, there's a lot of interesting content, as well as a lot of forensic content that we have before that in 2025 and early 2026. So if you're interested in any content like this, make sure to take a look at the Substack page and possibly subscribe to it too. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. So welcome back to the video, everybody, and in this part of the video I'm going to be telling you guys how to grab the software. So if I go back to my browser over here, I have tabs for DBBrowser for SQLite and fqlite. Both of them are very easy to get. So in this case, for our DBBrowser for SQLite, I will go to the download page and tell you that I believe in Windows you can get this directly from the Winget package manager, but since I'm on Linux right now at this point, I don't have Windows available to me. And for macOS, you can also get it from the homebrew station. And on Linux, there's a common app image package that you can use for every single x86 version. And if you want an actual package, you can get it from the Snap store here also, or directly through your package manager of choice, which on Arch Linux will be Pacman, Fedora, and others are the DNF package manager, and through OpenSUSE, it's Zipper, and you can see here through Debian, you can get it through the app package manager, and also you can add a repository if you're on Ubuntu and its derivatives, and it'll give you that. You can also get nightly builds and get it on BSD. Now, I did here was I grabbed the app image, which I got right here, and I installed it with the app image launcher. And this fqlite is pretty much the same, although you have to compile the code, which is a bit more difficult. And in this case, what you're going to have is your Java development kit. Well, if you're on Linux, it's the Java development kit, which you can get with JDK 21, I believe, which is what I have. And actually, I'll go back to the GitHub page, which is right here. So yeah, you're going to have to compile it, or you can have it compiled in a DMG file if you're on Mac. You can have it as an exe on your Windows system, and it has releases here if you're on Debian or... Okay, well, if you're on a Debian-based system, it has a compiled Debian image of this, which makes it easier than it is for me here on my Red Hat system. So on my Red Hat system, I had to compile this, and I had to have the Java development kit, or I could have just done it with this. So go to LCD into my forensics directory and show you everything I got there. And so we'll go into the CD fqlite. And so if you don't have the Java development kit or anything, or Gradle installed, you can either do... You'd have to run this Gradle file. You do it with /gradlew. You do it like that to first get Gradle, and then you do Gradle build to build it, and then Gradle run like this. You do Gradle run to run it, and that's what gives you this. And you can also get this by pressing this button right here for SQL, which we will go over later in this video. But for now, let's get into DBBrowser for SQLite and look at some of its features. Okay, welcome back to the video, and let's look at DBBrowser for SQLite's features. And I've done this covering its features in a previous video, but I want to look at some of the features before going to the SQL querying to get those of you who haven't looked at it yet, or who haven't just generally been into SQLite databases. And so we have up here a new database button, which you can create a database with. You can open databases with this open database button. You can write changes to the database, but in this case, you don't want to write the changes that you make. But you can also redo and revert the changes you make, which you'll have to do. Then you also have open and save projects, and to attach databases, and to close the database. You could probably do that with this. And then here down here, right here you have this table which you can select the tables from. You can add things to the browser. And you can mess with filters and print the database and do a bunch of other things with it that we're not too interested in right now. And so in this panel right here, what you have is you have the basics of all your data. So you can click on something, this, or this. And you have this selected, and it'll show up in this panel, and you'll be able to see all of the data that's in that panel without expanding it via this scroll bar, which you can do like this with the mouse, or if you have mouse. Okay, well, I guess you can't do that. And sometimes you also have binary large objects or blobs in this. Let me find one. History visits. So I guess nope. So the Safari database doesn't seem to have any blobs. Yeah, it doesn't have any blobs in it. Yeah, but anyways, if there were a blob, it would show up here, and you can do something really convenient here, which is save the blob. I believe this one, export to file. You can export this as anything. And in some cases you would get, if you're doing Apple for instance, you would get a plist, a binary plist that's just formatted as a blob. And with that you can go, you can save it as star.plist, and that star would go for any sort of plist information that you have, and after that you would be able to open it in your plist viewer of choice to see what plist information that you have in a more formatted format. And that is the basic gist of, and also you can connect to the databases here. I forgot about that. But that is the basic gist of this browse data format. And if you go into the database structure, you can see all of your SQLite, what's the word for that? All of your SQLite schemas. I guess I'm not paying attention, but all of your SQLite schemas are right here, so it's all the commands that were used to create each different table. And all of the data that they have so that you can see everything. And then edit pragmas, you can edit the pragmas, which is something that I haven't done into yet and that I don't think is really necessary for our forensics duty. And then this here, you can run an SQLite query. So you can do something like that, which I can get into a whole series of videos about when it comes to forensics. But basically the basic structure of the queries are you can select a certain amount and type of data from this, and in the most simplest of cases you would use this title and anything else from the database, and you'd find other things. And in this case, when I was doing this practice, I was trying to count in this the instances of the word sitar and the instances of confessions in the table of history visits. So if we go back to history visits, we'd see that there's 194 rows of this, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instances of this confessions, and there's also of sitar. So it was saying 13 of sitar. So let's see. Sitar, 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 So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm so far only counting 10, but there should be 3 more. Oh, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so anyways, it counted 13. Yeah, and that's pretty cool, right? And I like that. So there's things that you can do with this. So you can open different SQL files, you can save the SQL file, you can execute the commands, you can execute the current line, and my favorite part is you can save the results view, and you can either do it as JSON or CSV, and I think CSV would be helpful for us because we can open this in something that's similar to Microsoft Office Power or Microsoft Excel or something like that. So in this case, I have LibreOffice Calc, which is my stand-in for that on Linux. And we can open it. And that is the way to open that, and you can give the results of your queries to your boss or whomever needs it. And that is very simple to do it that way. And you can also find text and do other things with it. But so that's the basic breakdown of this right here, of this DBBrowser for SQLite. It's very cool. And pay attention to this table over here. Pay attention to the number 194. Because that will become important in our next part of the video. So welcome back to the video, and let's get into fqlite now. So first of all, back to this history visits table. Okay, wait, that's the WAL file, the write-ahead log. This one shows only 127 of those 194 that I saw. So that'll become important for us a bit later on. But for here, what you could do in this one is you can do basically all the same functions. You can open databases, you can execute the thing from directly there. And you have another thing right here, which is pretty interesting for us, which is our Hex-Viewer, which I can zoom in on. Okay, so I can't zoom in on this like actual zoom. but it shows us the whole entire SQLite database in terms of our hex view, which can help us find some data in some places. If we need to carve out anything. And we could see by just basic inspection that there's some human readable strings here that if we were going through it a whole lot more in depth, that we can go ahead and see that there's a URL right here, and there's probably lots of other things in there that I'm just scrolling through. Anyway, to not take too long on this, that's a pretty good overview of the hex view that we have here. And then we can search in the database for something. We can analyze the database schema just like we did in the previous one. And actually, when you open a database, you get this, so you can here look at all of the pragmas there again, and then the SQLite schema in a way similar to like what we saw in DBBrowser for SQLite. And then you can also open up our SQL analyzer, which we'll go into more here. And then you can do the node QL builder too and open an SQL agent. Oh, and that's a feature that I didn't know too much about. And I learned something new today too. And so this is for using a local LLM, and you can connect your local LLM to this, and you can do things with it. And then you can export the whole table as a CSV. You can export this to HTML. You can export the database as into a case report, and you can finally export the database to a new database to just make a copy of everything. So the thing that I'm most interested in here is our SQLite statements. And so if I do my same query, which I already did here, it kind of messed up on some rows, and I have to see what the deal with that is, but it does the same 13, and on the St. Augustine column, it will do 0 because it doesn't find anything from 127 down. And you can also copy the result set to clipboard, and in this case, you can go back to our LibreOffice Calc over here, and maybe you can paste your results into a CSV document and get your CSV columns, and whatever works here. And one thing that you can't do with DBBrowser for SQLite is open our write-ahead logs. And let's go back over here and copy this since I accidentally closed it. And what the write-ahead logs are is how SQLite saves things that have been done, and okay, I don't know if I see any. It saves deleted records or records that have not been written just yet. So if I paste this in, okay, post-production Matt here, and in the previous section that I'm writing over, I made a mistake on the SQL query that I was making, and this is the correct SQL query. As you can see here on this one, if I press play, it'll work, and if we go to this one under history.db, it will also work and give us the 13 and 0. And so what we want to do is we want to copy that in there and go into our History Visits tab. And this is under our history.db-wal, which is our write-ahead log. And if I haven't already said that in the version of the video that I'm making right now, the write-ahead log is the log that writes ahead, and it's also where deleted things go and where we can see more records if they don't exist in the database itself. So now in this one, we can go here, we can go to this, and we can paste what we made in here and see what things we see in here. And we see that it gives us a bunch of different new results. And in here we find that there are 30 instances of our confessions and no instances of our setar, which we had in the original one. So that shows us that none have been deleted. No instances of our setar have been deleted yet. But rather, there are some instances of our confessions by St. Augustine that were deleted. Yeah, like we see confessions down here, confessions. And so we also realize that this algorithm matches both uppercase and lowercase versions of it, so that is good for us. And we can also do other things to compare how our write-ahead logs and our regular databases that are what we have in them, and to see what was deleted or what was removed from the database for whatever reason, for vacuuming, or that the system wanted to take out. So with that being said, I think that is enough for now. We could do a second fqlite video here to do some talking about this case reporting, or do NodeQL or whatever else with the large language models that I might want to do. But for now, this has been Matt talking to you guys about fqlite and SQLite database reader. And I hope you enjoyed this video, just going over them again. And these are tools that we can use and that they are very powerful, and they help us gather information from our SQLite databases that are in our forensic images and Until next time, Matt out.